I'd like to call to order the Curriculum and Student Development Committee of the Madison Board of Education. Members of the committee are Kathy Miller, who's here tonight, and myself, Stephen Penn, and Mary Ann Connolly is also a member of the committee. I think I saw her. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent, Gail Dolling-Hench, to introduce the presenters for this evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have 3 presentations for you this evening. The first one is welcoming back Martin Glasser. Martin hasn't been here, I think, for a year and a half. Martin has been
here. I was online with you last year when you approved the Greece trip.
Yeah, I think that was.
I love to say that. That's good.
And I'd also like to thank TJ for being here for all 3 presentations. They are all about Daniel Penn High School. So thanks so much. And Martin, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about the German exchange
Yeah,
program.
and before I do, I just want to give a quick shout out to my colleague Catherine. The Board of Ed Education approved trip to Greece was done in April and it went splendidly. And this time she led it. It was a great trip,
Nice.
very successful. Excuse me.
World travel.
You have to excuse me. I've got a cough that's been since Greece. Yeah, nope, I got took a COVID test yesterday. We're let me tell you the genesis really quickly. His secretary, Carla Marino, one of your better employees in my opinion. She's actually German. Her family came from Germany about 100 years ago. She still has cousins in Germany, and one of her cousins is from Freiburg. I'm curious if you've ever been to Freiburg, Germany. It's supposed to be a pretty town. I've never been there myself. At any rate, it's in the Black Forest, and there's some teachers who had been doing exchange programs previously, but I don't know why they lost that connection. And her cousin reached out to Carla to see if we could do it, and PJ obviously approved it. And she reached out to a couple of people of international experience, and by crook or by crooked, his eye kind of took over and started to recruit students and parents to host the girls. There's no girls private school in Germany. They're going to be about 16, 17 years old approximately. They're going to be living with our kids, boys and girls, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, for about 2 weeks, maybe a little over 2 weeks, going to school with the kids, experiencing home life in America, doing whatever the families do. It's going to be like a quick AFS program, essentially. And then they're going to do some side trips on their own, going to Boston and New York. And 2 of the teachers from that school will be living with my wife and me, which means I get to take the rooms this summer. That's really one more important aspect of the program. When the girls go back, hopefully our kids have made some great connections, and they will have the opportunity, if they want to, it's obviously not required, to go spend time with them in Freiburg in July, living with their families just as they did here. And that's to be determined. We don't know when, we don't know exactly where they would go. We plan to meet with the interested parties, I would say sometime later in the fall, maybe November, or probably not much later than that, because they get plane tickets at a fairly reasonable price and see who wants to go. Then figure out if we want to go anywhere other than Freiburg, we could actually go to Paris or something like that as well. That's to be determined. Other than that, I don't know exactly what else to add. That is crucial information. Is there anything else?
I would just like to thank Mr. Glasser. He spent a lot of time with the communication and reaching out to our community, which was really responsive. We had a lot of parents. We weren't sure anyone would be interested, and we had to actually say, we'll put you on the waiting list. We had so many parents really interested. I think it's a unique opportunity to have students from Germany come to Hand, but also giving students from Hand an opportunity, to visit and get a different experience. So we're hoping this is more than a 1 year only, but we want to obviously see how it goes.
Can you talk about the time frame, the windows for them?
Sorry, last 2 weeks of October, and hopefully we can arrange for the homecoming dance to be then, and other events that would make it very American for the girls. They're all excited about. We thought originally they were coming in on a Saturday or Sunday, and we were going to arrange for one of our buses to go down there and pick them up. They're all excited about riding a yellow American school bus. But they had to switch to Friday with a shortage of drivers. We can't. Magda says she can't guarantee that, so we're going to have to Peter Pan or something like that.
So this, excuse me. So the students aren't staying with the same families of the students that come here, that's. In terms of our students go to Germany and they stay with,
Hopefully the same hopefully if. You know, Heidi from Germany stays with Mary here. And it all turns out, well, if Mary wants to go to Germany, she'll stay with Heidi's family in Freiburg.
all right. So it wasn't recruiting people in the community beyond. Students that wanted to go to Germany and the family would accept that they would have a German student in there.
Yeah, well, the going to Germany part is not a requirement. That's optional, and we don't know frankly how many students are gonna take advantage of that. My guess would be about, there's 20 of them coming here, if I didn't say that. And my guess would be about a dozen would be interested, but that's just a flat out guess.
Thank you.
Am I released?
Any questions? Anyone have any questions?
I guess I missed a minute before, couple of minutes, just.
So the upshot is that through connection in this school, we have the opportunity to do an exchange program with an all-girls school in Germany. They'll be coming to Hand, hosted by various families in October. They'll stay about 2 weeks and then they'll go back to Germany, and then hopefully our students will be interested in this all now.
Yeah, the only thing I've got that some of the kids are gonna be seniors hosting the German kids, and that's a little tricky because we don't really have any jurisdiction. You know, over there, so we probably will have to think about that one.
Carefully.
Mhm.
And is it, let me ask, I know that when the trips to different countries are done over the summers, it's usually through a travel company. Is there an exchange program that this is going through, or is it just a privately arranged?
You'd have to, that's not my decision, actually. I mean, you can answer that one.
For what's currently in place privately.
Okay.
And we don't have any outside program assisting. I'm not sure we would go in that direction. I think it would be based on number of students interested. We're anticipating this will be a very positive experience for all of the students and families involved. I think we'll have a lot of students interested in moving on to the next option, you know, in the upcoming months, and then we'll see if it's necessary or not. You know, it's, you know, the big companies are really helpful in a lot of cases. I rather only use it if it's necessary. So we'll see, you know,
I do
obviously how it goes.
The big exchange companies usually come to us. We usually have 1 or 2 students and they stay for the entire year. So that is a different kind of exchange program.
Yeah.
This is 2 weeks.
And that gets a lot more complicated. You're talking about visas and those families. So those agencies always approach us every summer. And we always have 1 or 2
And
students.
have we done this before? Or have you?
Had sister partnerships in Costa Rica, sister schools. Where we've gone to visit.
But have we had people here?
We have not had, the idea behind that exchange was that it would be an exchange. We went to Costa Rica more than.
And they can.
Is the travel being arranged through a travel agency commonly, or is it
On whose end?
on the student, our students, like is their travel being handled as a group, like through a travel
I
agency?
mean, when we go there?
Yeah.
That's to be determined again. That's, I don't think that's gonna be a big problem to tackle, but we have to sit down with parents and stuff like that.
The only thing that I wouldn't recommend though for that is to try, maybe it might make sense to go through a single agent or something, because it might be more efficient and easier to advise all the students and their parents that are taking the trip as to trip insurance and shared flight information and all of that, so. It might make coordinating easier, and they might get a group discount on flights or something.
I have one quick question. How did this all come about?
Oh, his secretary, Carla Marino, was
Uh-oh.
contacted by one of her cousins who
Oh,
lives in the town where we're doing the exchange with. And that's where it came from.
Okay,
Now, all the costs for this program are borne by the families in terms of transportation and so forth.
Yes.
Is there any provision for students that are interested but may not have the means on any scholarships or anything like that.
We're not at that point yet. We're with the students who are coming. That's, totally on their end. We plan a meeting with the host family as well as the students, our students, before the arrival and after to talk about next steps. We usually can offer some financial assistance, it depends on the overall cost. That could be, a pretty significant number, but we regularly communicate to our students to reach out to me specifically or parents for financial support. So we have some student activity funds specifically designed for this. Could be an option.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, Martin.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Martin.
Dan, I'm gonna call you up.
See you tomorrow.
TJ, you can stay. TJ has a permanent.
All right, my turn for the hot seat.
Thanks.
He's my-
So Dan is here. Dan is coordinator of the CTE department and actually was the coordinator for the curriculum writing for a period of time too. So I was asking Dan earlier today if he's rusty at coming to this committee, and I'm pretty sure he's not rusty. So this is an exciting opportunity that Dan's been working on extensively for a long time, years.
Yes,
So this is truly exciting. I didn't want to miss one more minute before it was brought before this committee, because it has been years since anything. So I'm going to turn it over to Dan and say thank you.
thank you, Gail. Thanks for having me here. I want to share this great opportunity at hand for our students within our career technical education department. As Gail mentioned, we've been working on offering dual enrollment opportunities for our students. And happily, I can say we just finalized the agreement with both Quinnipiac and Goodwin University. So on the handout, I'm not going to read the course description, but we have 2 courses that our students can get college credit in as they pertain to one of our 2 different career pathways. So the one through Goodwin University relates to our manufacturing pathway. So just on a side note, I put our lovely logo, our paw on the upper right, and it lists our 7 different career pathways. So all of our courses are organized in a fashion around those pathways. On the back of the handout, for another reference, are the 2 pathways that we're mentioning. So the circle one is our manufacturing pathway. You can see there's 4 courses there. And the triangular, the upside triangle, that's our video production pathway. So with Goodwin University, our former computer-aided drafting class now aligns with their technical drawing and specification class, which ties really well with our manufacturing pathway as an introductory course in learning how to read blueprints and to create blueprints. So in terms of offering industry-related skills for our students, this is a good opportunity. And regarding the process, this process for Goodwin, I've been working on it about 1.5 years with the university, different staff, taking professional development days, going up there. We had to do an in-depth analysis of our current curriculum to see where it aligns with what they teach. And then at that point, we had to get together and revise our curriculum to match the rest of theirs. So that was a time-consuming process. Very rewarding, getting to see from their point of view what they would like our students to get. So I found that very rewarding. The second course through Quinnipiac, similar situation. However, our two of our courses out of our 3 video production sequence, our students take those, they will get credit for their FTM 110 course at Quinnipiac. So that's going to pose a little bit, some more challenges that we're still going to try to work out the kinks in terms of when do they need to take the sequence of those courses. So we signed the agreement, now we're just hashing out the little details. that was a great opportunity. I got to spend a lot of time on that campus, working with their department chair and 3 different faculty members, along with my coworker Luke. And same thing, we had to go through an in-depth process of reviewing our curriculum, see how it aligns with theirs. And then we went through a revision process. The major piece that Quinnipiac was concerned about was the software, which we currently do not use. So are going to be able to make provisions within our Perkins grant to subsidize the purchase of that software. So we're in full alignment with their curriculum. So we are very happy this process is over, but we are also hoping this is kind of that catalyst to help us try to get an opportunity in each of our different career pathways.
I just have to add on, curriculum cycles end, but people like Dan Grenier do not, they're still going after things they weren't able to accomplish during the course of that cycle, lifting us, bringing us to great opportunities like this. So I want to thank Dan. He is so religious about changes in the curriculum and making sure he goes through the processes. And he's just always on point. So I want to thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Keeping your vested interest in the improvement of programs in your department.
Thank you.
And just to jump on, Dan, like he's finished this process and he's already starting, next look at some options for some dual enrollment. So we'll hopefully have an ability to, obviously after we talk with Dr. Cook and Gail, for some options moving forward, we're hoping to have more, not less, which is really exciting, but it is an incredible time commitment. I give Dan and Luke, who's jumped in as well, a lot of credit because this is an incredible amount of work and we appreciate it. It's great for kids.
I think this is the type of example, as it's Teacher Appreciation Week, we think about what teachers do, and a lot of what teachers do is just unseen, but it's yeoman's work, and it does not go unnoticed by our board and by our community. So thank you, and thank you, Mr. Glasser. I mean, those are the things that make our community special, and it's a lot of work. I mean, when we say a lot of work, it's like that's an understatement. So thank you.
I think it also bears mentioning especially for some of the newer board members, our career tech ed program is considered, pretty good. And Mr. Grenier himself has been awarded by the state, right, for statewide organizations that you belong to for all the great work you do, and we greatly appreciate that. So thank you.
I love to see these initiatives for a whole host of reasons. When we look at 21st century skills and what the world is going to be calling for our students, there are a lot of avenues that are related to tech ed that are particularly relevant. The other is, there's a lot of confusion frequently on the part of the public in terms of, well, tech ed's for those kids that aren't interested in going to college, which is, it has for a long time not been the case. This is a very technical world. So something like this that says, this is dual credit, this is college credit for tech level courses. The other piece I would add to that, however, is there's a whole other level that across the country, a lot of schools are pursuing, which are industry level certificates, which is, demonstrating competency at specific skills that the world values, so that, things like with the Goodwin University course, being able to have industry endorsement in CAD is something that's valued in the world. So, there are different levels, and I personally would like to see, students developing a deeper portfolio of not just the college credits, but that they, can demonstrate that they have, industry level certificates that demonstrate, competency. So, I think this is very much in that line and, very much support these efforts. So thank you.
Thank you.
And Dan, this course, correct me if I'm wrong, is so important because also when a student has the opportunity to go through that program, it's an 18-month program or so, they also can waive out of math and English based on courses they take at Daniel Hand. So it's not just this course that they start off with. And so students are able to go to Goodwin or a similar program and start their bachelor's, shortly after in a company that will pay for it and end up with an engineering degree. A short amount of time and have real hands-on experience that companies really value. So just amazing opportunities out there, especially in Connecticut and that, in the New Haven and Hartford area in manufacturing right now. So thank you for everything you're doing to help our students get there.
Do you find the guidance folks have a full understanding of this option as they're talking to
Yes.
students?
They do now. No, they have. We have a great department. Chrissy Coyle now is our career guidance counselor, so her and I have been working a lot together. Even before this recent appointment, she's helped us with our Perkins grant. So I'm glad you mentioned like the industry recognized credentials, and that's a lot of work that's my world. Every year I apply for the Perkins grant. Gail and I work closely on that. We do have a computer aided drafting credential. Next year, I'm hoping to work on a safety credential through OSHA, Occupational Safety and Hazard Association. So we have a lot of things going on in our wheelhouse. That's great. And Craig, I'm glad you mentioned different opportunities. It's not just college. I was at a grand opening of Bosch and Strobel, who is one of our partners, and I was at their facility last week. Beautiful facility, but the lieutenant governor was there, local reps, and Connecticut is in dire need of manufacturing, high demand, high skilled labor, and they are just begging to get students there. They'll pay for their school. Electric Boat right now will pay for housing. I mean, the benefits are truly there, and it's just another opportunity for students, which is awesome.
And with college having become as expensive as it is, even for state schools, a lot of students now and their parents are pursuing a different path. And it's especially with precision manufacturing and modern manufacturing that's occurring in Connecticut, it is a really good career path for students to go and maybe not go to college. And this is really preparing those students who may be preferring that path and just to get right into the manufacturing world and make a lot of money and have a good life. So, we really talk about, every student. I know that you're big on
Add
this.
to that.
Yeah.
I mean, Georgetown, one of the latest reports from Georgetown University. This is the freshmen that are in Daniel Hand right now. 6 out of 10 of them are going to end up in jobs that don't even exist yet. I mean, you can't even wrap your head around what that means. And, AI and the impact on industries and jobs and so forth. So, I mean, it's a really rapidly changing world. So the dimensions where kids are learning skills that are adjustable and flexible and pertain to that world, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I think,
Hopefully I'll be here soon again.
I think definitely the theme of the night is people who go above and beyond. You've seen Martin bring the world, or kids to the world. You've seen Dan bring the world to the kids. And you're going to, of course, see Catherine and Ron again, but welcoming them back, who actually started on this mission of social emotional learning and the importance of it before the board even identified it as a priority this year. They had already set in motion something to really address on an ongoing basis connectedness to kids. And as I met with them earlier this week and talked about this presentation, I said, we started out with this Wellness Wednesday model, and we almost like said to kids, here's recess, And now you have a little bit less recess and you have to do some work about really thinking about what meaning you bring to wellness. And that's a hard transition. So when we were first here, and it was like, you know, it's a heavy lift to do because you're building relationships and you're also building a commitment to make meaningful instructional moments to help kids come out stronger and more adept humans for the world that they're going to face. So I give a badge of courage to Catherine and Ron. And they came back with some astounding information that I think is, I envy in my work to come into a first year of a program and have such great numbers for impact. But I don't want to steal your thunder. I hope I didn't kind of steal your thunder, but thank you so much. Welcome back. So Catherine and Ron with advisory.
Thank you. And thank you for having us back to talk about advisory at the high school. Looking back at our first year, we've had some huge successes. We have steadily worked towards our long-term big picture goal, met short-term goal for this year. And most importantly, we think we've really established that our community is committed to relationship building and social and emotional health. Next slide, please.
There's a little button on the side that sometimes you need to turn on. Oh, God.
There you go.
That's on. No, we're on.
You got it.
Okay, thank you. So tonight we are going to talk to you about several things. First, we'll just review our vision and goals. We will talk about how we measured impact from this year, what our data shows exactly, what topics we covered in activities, what feedback students and staff are providing, and how our advisory goals also align with NEASC accreditation, profile of a graduate, and our school improvement plan. Next slide, please. Thank you. Our collaboratively developed Daniel Hand vision for advisory is that social and emotional learning is essential to student success in the classroom and beyond. That advisory develops trusting relationships among students and staff and supports students with meaningful, immersive activities related to social growth and mental health. That advisory is student-driven and student-directed. And to flush out that vision, our community established 4 goals for advisory. First, that advisory is to develop student social and emotional skills. Second, that it is to facilitate the development of strong, trusting relationships through collaboration. And these are not in order of most importance. They're all equally important. 3, offer leadership opportunities for interested students. And 4, to promote student growth in the areas of responsible decision-making, managing emotions, cooperatively resolving conflict, and overcoming adversity.
Okay, so when we looked at the profile of the graduate capacities, we wanted to try to make some connections to the goals that we had for advisory and some of the capacities that were embedded within the profile of the graduate. And so we thought that one of the capacities was collaboration and communication, that students were working in collaborative environments, working with respectful dialogue, exchanging ideas, and that's a lot of the activities that we do in advisory sort of require that kind of collaborative conversation in order for it to be successful. We also think that's a lot of the activities aligned to global thinking, another capacity, which is to analyze and identify critical issues in society, which falls under the heading of citizenship. Additionally, alternative perspectives. So we interpret complementary and competing worldviews. Not everyone in advisory comes from the same cut of cloth, and so people have different perspectives, different opinions, and so that's a way to embed some of those advisory activities into the capacities of a graduate. And then finally, self-direction. So a lot of the SEL capacities, the CASEL domains, deal with self-awareness, responsible decision-making, and a lot of the activities that we've done in advisory also have those as skills. So when we looked at how advisory was impacting the students. We had the December survey that we came in and presented to the board. And we just recently gave a survey in April. We had 515 students respond, which is about half the student population, and we had 52 faculty respondents, which is about half of the staff as well. We looked at that data. We also looked at narrative feedback at student leader meetings, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. We held those on the first Thursday of every month. We also looked at narrative feedback from faculty committee meetings, which we usually hold every trimester, sometimes a little more frequently if needed. We get a lot of feedback just from ongoing anecdotal conversations, talking to students, teachers, and halls and classrooms and things like that. And in the future, we hope to also employ the data from the DESA, which we don't currently give, but we'll be giving starting in the next school year. And also the results from the Search Institute Attitudes and Behavior Survey. We're going to incorporate those into how we measure impact in the future. So one of the things that we had to provide to NEASC was areas that we thought we needed to grow upon and improve upon. And we came to a conclusion that we thought we needed to grow upon this area of advisory, that it wasn't necessarily what we wanted it to be yet. And so we kind of identified that as an area of growth. However, NEASC disagreed with us. They said, no, we disagree with that you are currently doing it. It is in the works. You are collecting feedback. You're making changes based upon that feedback. And so the recommendation was that we continue to use these programs and as a normal operating procedure based on data-driven decision-making to direct potential changes and alterations, which was, I think, kind of encouraging from the NEASC committee to say that, you know, we thought we could be doing more and better, and like, no, this is going well, it seemed like. So that was encouraging. For our first goal from the survey this April, which was to facilitate the development of strong, trusted relationships and collaboration amongst school and community members, we asked the students, what do you like about advisory? Just give us some, to give some feedback. And so a lot of the things that came up, by and large, more than anything else, was people. They like the people, they like the relationships, they like their advisors. That was a common thread amongst almost all the respondents. Some other things that we got that we thought were meaningful feedback was that they are these advisory periods are non-judgmental, that they're inclusive, they're open discussions. And what a lot of students liked, and teachers said the same thing, was that it's time to discuss things that don't have a grade attached to it. This is like a low pressure, like kind of like low stakes environment where we can, take a breath and like let our hair down and say things without worrying about what kind of grade we're going to get. Some of the percentages that we got were that 80% of students feel comfortable and safe with their peers in the advisory group, which we also thought was pretty encouraging feedback. For the faculty, same thing we asked, what do you like about advisory? They love engaging with the students in a non-academic setting, just like the students do. They enjoyed the team building activities, conversations aimed at improving students' social and emotional well-being, meeting new students, because a lot of times these advisory periods include students that you might never teach or see in the hallways. And so this is just another opportunity to make more connections with students. And then because of that, they like the aspect that they see somebody in the hallway, they're like, I would have never met you, but hey, and you engage in conversations, things like that. Yeah.
Can I ask, how are the advisory groups constituted? Is it alphabetical? Is it?
It's not. So we actually painstakingly over the summer gave students, we gave them an opportunity to choose 4 or 5 people that they would like to be with. It wasn't guaranteed that you would be with all 4 or 5 of those people, but wanted to, maybe have at least one person. So we tried to organize the groups that way. There's been some advantages to that a lot of the kids do like, that they have some of their peers in the groups and they feel comfortable with already without having to sort of establish those relationships. Some of the consequences have been that there are some cliques in some of the groups. We probably underestimated the likelihood of that happening. And so what we decided was, for the incoming freshmen, we're not going to do alphabetical, but we're just going to do random. And then we're going to get some input from Catherine Hart and whoever else down there that might just steer us in some understanding of who should definitely not be together. I think that's more important to us than who should be together. Like, are there any potential real hazards?
Yeah. And how many students are in each advisory group?
So right now the most is 18. It's usually about 16. they're larger than we'd like them to be, but just based on the amount of faculty we have.
Now they all in the grade.
They're
Yes.
grouped by grades, yes. So the idea was to keep them in the same advisory group throughout the 4 years that they're here.
And there are 2 faculty members with each group of students.
And they facilitate more, but it's more led by the students.
Yes.
Yes, we're gonna talk about this.
Direction we're headed.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So could we get the next goal? So goal 2 is to develop students' social emotional skills. We asked them, what do you like about advisory besides people? It's a lot of the topics and the activities that they do in there felt like they were interesting and engaging. 82% of the students reported that the advisory topics are connected to their social and emotional needs. And this was a growth from 53% of students saying that in the December survey. That's partly because from September to December, we kind of focused more on the relationship building part of advisory. And then in the new year, we shifted gears to more of the SEL skills which we had planned to do. So I'm glad that we saw some growth in that area. As far as the feedback from faculty, again, they like the hands-on topics at SEL, and 82% of the faculty also agreed that the advisory topics are connected to their SEL needs.
The third goal is that advisory promotes growth in the 4 areas of responsible decision making, managing emotions, cooperatively resolving conflict, and overcoming adversity. Those goals come directly from the CASEL SEL competencies, which are shown on that colored wheel in the middle. CASEL is an international SEL organization that's been around since the 90s. They've done tons of research on effective strategies, programs, and training connected to SEL. And so we use those competencies to guide the topics that we feel are important in those 4 areas. As well as Ron and I have attended several of their trainings, and their trainings are ongoing. So we plan to continue attending them in the future. Next slide, please. So this chart is great. It shows on the top those 4 target areas that advisory has. The next row across shows specific lessons that we did from the new year on that targeted those specific areas. And then the last 2 rows show areas that students gave us in the written surveys that they wanted more lessons and attention given to. So what this chart shows is that we're really getting our topics from 2 areas. One is from the research-based CASEL competencies, and 2 is from direct feedback from our students in our community about what they want and need. And they all align. Our students are part of those statistics. And so our kids are struggling in the same areas that kids are across the country, unfortunately. And so, for example, under overcoming adversity, as a target area, 2 of the lessons or activities that we did in advisory this spring and winter, one was on healthy versus unhealthy coping skills. Another was on responding to rejection. And those directly correlate to students asked for activities and help with how do I manage and balance school versus life and managing rejection. That was a huge one, especially with seniors this spring. That was a real struggle. So this, I think, directly supports the statistics that Ron just shared about students and faculty really feeling that what we're doing correlates to what they need. Thank you. And our 4th goal, which you had already mentioned, Mr. Klotzman, is offering leadership opportunities for interested students. What we did from the new year on is we encouraged advisors to have student volunteers lead the scripted activities in advisory. And our surveys show that 56% of students reported that student leaders chose to facilitate activities in advisory more than half the time. And 40% of students reported that their groups had student leaders 75% of the time or more. 90% of students reported that they were equally or more engaged when students led activities. So this was a really successful piece that we had in the second half of the year, that students took ownership and also students were engaged. They were more engaged, the broader groups, when students were upleading the activities versus teachers. We absolutely want to continue giving more formal and informal opportunities, which I'll talk about in our goals for next year with student leadership. But this was, one small way that we actually found some really large successes in. Faculty also support, in their statistics showing that students are leading advisory activities. 55% are reporting that students are leading activities, and 93% of students, they're saying, are equally or more engaged when students are up in front of the room. So the more we can do that, and we hope to do that more, the better. All of those goals align with the goals and priorities of Daniel Hand High School's school development plan in the school climate section. So everything we're doing aligns, and that good things happen when that happens. So next year, we want to continue to build and grow upon the good stuff that's been going on this year. First and foremost, we this summer are going to be working hard on developing 2 different lesson tracks, one for underclassmen and one for upperclassmen, that are able to dive into more age-appropriate SEL competencies, because some things that 9th graders need are not the same as what 12th graders need. Eventually, we would love to have grade level tracks, but separating next year into upperclassmen and underclassmen is a good goal, and then next year, hopefully, maybe even all 4 grades will have their own activities that they do. We want to continue to work towards more student-directed advisory content. We tried to pilot a student leader program this fall, and it was definitely too much too soon. And so we want to revisit that and pilot a new student leader training program to offer some formal training to student leaders. And we also want to develop a process to have more student-directed advisory content. We had a really successful lesson just last month that was completely student-created and run for See Something, Say Something Week, which is part of the Sandy Hook Promise. And so the more we can have student groups like the See Something, Say Something group come up with the activities, make the videos, pitch it to the students and the teachers, and lead it, the better. So a process to get more of that involved is definitely on the plate for next year. We also want to focus on integrating advisory topics into classrooms regularly so that the learning that's happening is more authentic. So the topics that we're talking about in advisory, how can that become a part of the everyday language in all classrooms all the time?
So I know we talked about this when you shared before, how you came up again with the topic, like, and every grade has the same.
Right now.
You're talking about making it separate. How do the topics, like, I know you did the Sandy Hook, but how do the rest of them, how do you?
So it's been a combination of we're taking things from the Castle SEL competencies, which is the research-based group, as well as input from our students and our faculty and Madison Youth and Family Service about what our students really need.
And then based on that, we develop lessons that address those specific areas.
And it's a lot. It's a lot. And we have pulled, we pulled from many different resources. Last year when we did all the research behind starting this, we decided not to use a canned program. A lot of high schools do. And so, yeah, it is a lot of work, but we think it's really meaningful.
What's a typical, like, you did Sandy Hook Promise, but what's another topic?
Maybe go back to that chart.
Yeah,
So
sure.
There's something called Ruler from Yale. That's another program that a lot of oh, you mean other
Oh,
canned?
yes.
What
No, what did we do?
specifically? Like,
Oh, I'm sorry. I think there are other canned
what
programs.
would a typical lesson be of that week?
So the ones at the top squares are ones that were covered this year.
Okay, so those are the ones.
Yeah, so like
Those are all examples.
So managing emotions was as a Castle framework, and it's something that that the kids asked for in terms of like better mental health. And so then we created different lessons. These are the titles of lessons. They're a little confusing but they're essentially about different pitfalls to social media, changes in the brain chemistry. Like this infinite scroll one was about apps that kind of like every 3 or 5 seconds reward you with like dopamine releases and, you know, how that impacts your ability to then enjoy parts of life that don't give you dopamine releases every 3 to 5 seconds, which is a challenge. And so that sort of fell under that mental health category. And so all these lessons, so that the top boxes come from our goal number 3. The middle boxes are the lessons that we did that align to those.
That was it. Those are all the lessons.
Yeah.
I like the bugs and mission.
Yeah, that went really well, actually. The students had a lot to say, and some of it was really constructive. And you know, with administration itself and TJ, we responded to a lot of those, and then we had sort of a follow-up lesson that gave them you know, information about, okay, so this was something that you guys wanted to see fixed, and here's what we're doing about it. And you know,
And do they write the lesson? I mean, how do they play it through during advisory? Do they write the letter to themselves and?
yeah, so right now, Catherine and I, we write the lessons as like a canned script that teachers can just be handed and they can read, and we give them all the resources and all the things that they need to run the advisory. The good thing is, since the new year, I think mostly the students have been taking that script and leading the advisory lesson, and the teachers are kind of just there to facilitate. So the letter to yourself was one about we're going to give them back the freshmen wrote letters to themselves that they'll get back senior year, talking about what their fears and hopes were for high school, and to see how that like sort of played out. The seniors, unfortunately, I'm not going to get that, but we asked them to write a letter to a freshman. But ideally, this would be an activity.
They're all different.
They're all different.
Only because this year was just, they were all the same lesson for every grade. That's ideally a freshman lesson. Maybe the seniors should do it, right, freshman, that was kind of interesting.
And sometimes they're more activity based, sometimes they're more discussion based.
Yeah.
It depends on the activity and the topic for the day.
So you mentioned other schools that do this, do X or Y, or they may do it a little differently than us. What percentage of schools, do you have any any idea what percentage of schools are doing this? High schools?
Advisories or this type of advisory?
Both.
Both. You know, I'd say that the majority of schools are trying to implement some sort of advisory program based on, one, it's really good for kids, and 2, there's different mandates coming down the pipe that advisory fills. I think that from what we've seen, there are a lot of canned programs that schools are buying. And also sometimes Profile the Graduate is mixed in with advisory. We really want advisory to be more SEL focused. And not, although there's overlap and they support each other, and to not have it associated with a grade. A lot of high schools are kind of trying to check 2 boxes from what we saw and do Profile the Graduate and advisory together. You know, we really pulled from what we liked about different programs and tried to make it what we thought would work best here.
We spoke with a few other schools too and asked them how their programs were going. Even Sandy Hook said they had initially bought Project Empower, I think it was called. Was Sandy Hook and Project Empower? And they were saying, we thought it was going to be great, but it turns out that a lot of the things that they require you to do in those canned programs wasn't really for their kids, and so.
And the new NEASC accreditation standards also require that there is SEL focused support. And so, you know, if schools aren't doing it already, they're going to have to do it. And so what was great is, you know, NEASC said to us, you don't have to improve in this, you're already doing it. And they said it wasn't developing. We would like it to develop further and continue to develop and grow, but they said you're doing it. So that was really a nice thing to hear from an outside perspective. And, you know, the last couple of things we wanted to just share with you about next year. Yeah, thank you. Is, you know, based on research, national trends, as well as what our students and families are telling us, topics under consideration for next year are social emotional health, continuing of course, diversity, inclusion, and belonging, suicide prevention, sexual assault awareness and prevention. And some of these topics are heavy. So we're also discussing having experts come in for many of these topics, and then using advisory as more of a follow-up small group discussion after an expert delivery. And we're also considering talking about a change in the scheduling, really the toughest part about advisory is that, and wellness, is that they do impact instructional time. So we're considering alternating structured advisory 1 week, wellness the next week, structured advisory 1 week, wellness the next week, because it would minimize the instructional impact.
As far as instructional impact is concerned, a couple things there. First of all, you guys were doomed from the start when anytime you touch Wellness Wednesday, which is so popular and just free time to unwind in the school setting. You were gonna get gripes. You were gonna get a lot of gripes. And I honor and respect the work that you two have done leading other faculty and doing it the Madison way, not just taking a canned program, but developing a whole curriculum the way you are. And I think that's gonna better reach our students. And I'm actually surprised at how quickly it seems like maybe there was a learned helplessness. The kids are like, well, we're stuck with it. We have to deal with it. But whatever the reason, it seems like they are taking to it more already within this year. And that's amazing. And it's probably a credit to the continual, curriculum cycle and revising and, all these ideas you have for improvement and growth. It's just fantastic. But I would urge, I know we have a lot of teaching to do, and that's our primary job. But I would urge folks to consider and understand that right now, with the levels, the crisis level of mental health in our schools among staff and students, we almost need to focus on this with the same rigor as academics. It's almost more important in a sense, and only when we can get our arms around getting our kids more comfortable in their own skin and in school and in social situations and tamp down the anxieties and the depression and stuff like that, that we're really going to reach them for their best education and absorbing lessons anyway. So, this board has tried to be very supportive, and this committee has been trying to be very supportive and also to be pushing and proposing that SEL be forefront. And we see through these efforts that it's taking root. And I thought it would be a generation of students out of hand before kids started really taking this seriously. But for that to start to happen within 1 year, that's amazing. So thank you for that great work. And I would urge you to continue. It's the important work that needs to be done right now.
Thank you.
Kathy, you look like you have something to say.
I'm just, I always burst with pride when I hear all of the work that teachers do, and I love that student voice is really being honored and encouraged, and I think that that's empowering for them, and that's what they need. I think it's great. As I'm sitting here, I'm thinking like, wouldn't it be nice to have advisory for teachers, where you guys get to go to like maybe a PD day with like where it would be advisory for teachers, or something. I don't know. I'm just thinking like an educator, but I just am blown away by all three presentations, and this is such an important and impactful part of their week, of their day. I know it's probably the only day, my daughter still probably comes late on that day, but it is a day that she gets out of bed. But I'm like, today's wellness. She's like, oh. So, but yeah, every day she's better of that. But I will say that this is heartwarming, and I just feel so lucky that that I'm in a community where this is a focus. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you have a suggestion box too?
We do have a suggestion box. It's not necessarily specific to advisory, but the students who are seemingly getting more and more committed because their efforts are incredible. This is a full-time job. Without question, on top of a full-time teaching job, and I'm just hopeful Catherine and Ron will want to continue, because I can see them saying, definitely too much, but I think they're committed. I had a student who met with me yesterday to start a new club, and they have to propose examples of how they're going to move this forward, especially when they're done graduating. And part of her presentation to me was, I have some plan for some advisory lessons because I think it would really fit, and that was unsolicited on my part, which is really, really exciting to see so quickly. And I do think some of the initial feedback that we received was we spent a lot of time on the relationships. The kids were like, we're there, let's go. And then we switched as of the midpoint of the year and got into the more social and emotional topics. And the kids said, as they got heavier, they're like, yeah, that's what we're supposed to be doing, which was nice to see.
That's great.
Can I just stress one thing? You covered it very well, but I don't think we realize how rare it is. So for me asking, I've been through different districts, multiple high schools and middle schools that also had done that as well. For something we're doing new, for us to make a recommendation that we need to keep working on this is an area of growth for us. And for them to come in and speak to students, speak to staff, so they're not just talking to the administration on this. They're hearing from students and staff who we're also hearing from as well. For them to say, no, you're good in this area. And that's one of the major focus areas, as they said. If we weren't doing this, NEASC would have come back and said, you need to start this or something similar. And so for us to be in that place where they said, no, you are in a great place, we're not going to make any further recommendations. That's a huge credit to you both. And so thank you, and administration, of course, who kind of got this ball rolling and certainly has been supportive. The other thing I want to say is what's really neat when you walk through the building on advisory day. TJ, Brian, Melanie are in classrooms along with the team. And you see them come in and see students come in and hug Mr. Solitary and they're excited about it. And they feel like, oh, the principal's my advisor. It's really great. And it's great to see the students kind of take hold of this. So that's rare. I don't know that I've seen that before, because usually NEASC will say, okay, you're telling us it's a growth area. We're going to let you keep, focusing on that. But for them to say, no. And that happened in 2 areas. We went from 5 to 3. So really great on the return on NEASC, and thank you so much.
I'm just thinking about something that TJ just said, and I know I'm going to say it. The idea of a full-time job kind of thing, like I already can think about how that might be, like working with students, working with like you were saying, Stephen, about guidance, taking this data, really making very specific decisions. I don't know. It sounds like there's something there. There's a there. So keep it in mind and grow that idea. I would love to help grow that idea. Well, we would love to support you in that.
I think it's also important to point out with advisories going back when the very first ones were started as the state. So I've seen a lot of them. And so because of that, I bring a certain degree of skepticism when I come to it, because I've seen lots and most of them were more than underwhelming. So when I think of advisory, I think of you two starting right off with the message of, coming to talk to the board and going, we're a work in progress here. There's still things we're developing, and I'm sitting here going, and that's exactly where you should be. And good for you to have the courage to come into the board and say, we're learning as we're going here. Utilizing the students, using their leadership, taking their feedback and guidance is so critical to this process. So I applaud that. The other thing, and I will underscore what others have said, and TJ said, the reason I've seen so many advisories fail is because people are busy. They're working hard. They look at it and they go, with all the other stuff I'm doing, you want me to do this in addition? And so they do it, but they don't do it. This commitment, and it's been said, but let me say it again. I applaud your efforts and I fully appreciate what that takes. But the return on that, and the value of it, is one of the most important things you can do. You know, I love the direction it's going. I see it growing, and I like the direction it's going into next year. There's some tough stuff, as you say, and our students are struggling with things that, you know, everyone else. When I talk to students over the past several years in Madison, part of what they, you know, and I brought it up before, you know, they tell me there's serious things happening to our young people. Serious things, you know, abuse, sexual assault, others. And the students frequently know about it and, you know, see something, say something, or having a deeper conversation with students, with outside folks. So what do we do with that? Because, you know, that is not an easy answer. But when we lose students, it's usually in that domain. So, you know, the fact that the students value it and they appreciate students guiding that conversation and to have the courage, you know, the TJ, you know, creates a culture where young people can have real conversations about real things is so important. So, you know, I applaud that. And as everyone has said, you know, you have to know this board supports these efforts and will continue to do so.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming back with your ideas.
I think I'll just add one final compliment. The leadership has been incredible, and Ron, Catherine and I over the summer admittedly said, there's no way we're ready to roll this out, but we'll never be ready. So let's just do it. And like, really, it would have been so much easier for them to say, we need one more year. And they said, nope, we can just do it. And they really above and beyond, very impressive, incredible leadership, and to watch the entire faculty have input with the student body has been really impressive. So kudos to both of you, great work. I know it's an undertaking that's indescribable.
But you know what, TJ, you also deserve a little bit of credit here because.
It's only my fault.
No. Seriously, just quickly on parting, and you know, you guys are doing a great job. Please keep up the great work. It takes a certain kind of administrator, a building head, to really not only ask that, oh, guys, put something together, but to stand behind, provide the support, the constant encouragement, and pushing and pulling as you need to ensure that this kind of work, all the SEL that's going on in that school, not just this, all of it, because you recognize how important it is. And you were hired quite a while ago. And you know, you were hired in an era before all of this stuff really came about, before this mental health crisis. And when Madison was focused, like, you know, dead focused on academics and student achievement, maybe, well, we started to get into 21st century skills around when you were hired. You have personally encountered an evolution, and your practice has kept up. And I thank you very much for that.
Absolutely.
Can I add a 30-second reinforcement of that? He never misses an advisory, no matter what is going on in his office. He runs out and runs in, and we've come into his office with crazy ideas. And I think there's no way he's gonna say yes, and he just says yes. And I've been blown away sometimes. So what you're saying is 100% true. So thanks.
That's good. How great is it for the teachers and teachers? Teaching. I know him. How great is it for them to build a relationship with kids in a different way? And so you have a mutual respect. They would respect for you in a different way, and you would respect for them in a different way. And they know then that they have someone they can go to talk to at another time, maybe, where it's their teacher teaching them, grading them. I think that's one of the best parts.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Great work. Good job.
Thank you.
You can go home now. I'll get a job. Your time.
Bye, CJ.
And we call Dominic. Do we have any members of the public online? Any other comments by members of the committee?
No.
Barring that, I would like to make a motion